Extract 3 takes a look at China's economic growth target being cut. There is a quote from the Chinese Prime Minister listed as well, addressing his concerns about why they need to turn the focus now on development within China and the issues they're facing. I put a few questions together. This is not an exhaustive list, but if you can understand what is set here, the questions I'm going to put before you, you should be in good shape to understand that extract. So don't use this as the only thing you need to know, but I would say that it is a pretty good starting point. First of all, understand why a country would set an economic growth target. And think about what that means. Why would they set a target for economic growth? Why would a government actually have that as set as their target? You want to think about this in the context of the UK having an inflation target but an economic growth forecast, right? If there's an inflation target, it means the monetary policy is actively pursuing strategies to target inflation and to manage it. On the other hand, the economic growth forecast is not something that the government is, they are serious about it, but not in the sense that they're targeting it. Now with the Chinese, what they're doing is they have an economic growth target that's set, which stood at 8%. They exceeded it to 10.3%, and now they're lowering it down to 7%. Now the reason being, they're trying to slow down growth because they want to focus on a few of their issues with regards to the environment and sustainability that we get to later. But the thing I want you to think about is when they exceed the target, what does that mean? And when they drop below their growth target, what could that mean? And what actions could they potentially take? The second question I have here is what is meant by sustainable economic growth? And the definition you'll find anywhere is that it's development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. There is a bit of development on this point. The World Bank Group, if you follow this link, and in addition, or rather the World Bank, not the World Bank Group, in addition, there is some information as to why China is slowing down while their growth target has been decreased. Now, in terms of sustainable economic growth, you could take a look at this in the context of it's something that continues to help improve the social quality of people's life, the economic quality, and their overall well-being. But it goes beyond that, right? Let's not sacrifice tomorrow for today. If you can understand that concept, you're in good shape. And another point that's raised, this is the next question, that came up. I read this on an examiner's report. I don't know if it was this year's in January or previous, but they said a lot of students continue to confuse economic growth with development. They're two different concepts, with development requiring growth in order for it to take place. So economic growth, we automatically should jump to GDP and thinking about increases in productive potential, increases in output. Anything that would increase the real output of an economy would generally generate economic growth. Now, to what extent does that increase in economic growth help develop a nation is different. It's not the same as growth occurs, and so does development at the exact same time. Now, development really focuses on structural changes that improve the general population's quality of life, their education, their inequality, their literacy rate, infant mortality, birth rates. That's really what development focuses on, education. So if you have any questions on that, there's a link I believe I put at the bottom here. This chart is what I've captured from their webpage, but it's really good. It spells out the difference for you. And you can follow this link across to do that. Now, taking a look at why China why they cut their growth target from 8 to 7%. There's quite a few links in here why they cut their growth target, but the main things brought up from the extract were the environmental concerns, sustainability of growth, and whether Chinese people are reaping the benefits of growth. In that sense, yes, China is growing and exporting a lot, but are the people who are benefiting actually the Chinese, or is it somebody else? And you want to consider, is it going to be a small proportion of people who are growing wealthy, or is it a significant proportion? Right? They have a rising middle class, they have all those rural workers that are earning more, but to what extent is all this growth actually translating into improvements in the quality of their life and also increasing their wealth? We could consider taking a look at the Gini coefficient, how it's changed, and also take a look at the concepts of income and wealth inequality. Furthermore, the next question here is analyze the consequences of rapid economic growth in terms of its impact on the environment, what it would result in high levels of inflation. With unsustainable growth, we would definitely see resource depletion, and potentially an over-reliance on non-renewable resources, depleting them rather rapidly. Yeah, what does that mean? Does it always translate into development? Could it somewhat translate into development? Is it something that we see high, growth rates today, yet not tomorrow? So this is really something we need to understand clearly. Moving along, explain methods used to measure economic growth and/or development. The three I put here are it's not an exhaustive list, but if you can understand the clear differences between the three of them, you're in good shape. Tutor2U has a good link, has a good website, has a good page on HDI, which is building upon GDP in a sense, because GDP measures just output, in terms of the goods and services produced and how much more was produced. And that's not an accurate measure of development. That just tells us that there's being more produced. To get a better look, we have to examine HDI, which could include income per capita, life expectancy, infant mortality, and literacy rates. This is taking more of a look at the human side of it. Growth just looks at what's happening in terms of goods and services moving out of an economy, in and out of an economy, but HDI takes a look at the people, right? How are they impacted? What's happening to them? Are they becoming more educated? Are they living better lives? We really need to examine in that context. So GDP alone is not accurate measure of development. And then taking it a step further, understand the clear differences between the three, GDP, HDI, and ISCW. The Friends of the Earth webpage has a really good in-depth explanation of ISCW, and understand the benefits and disadvantages of each. I think the ISCW is also covered in the green OCR textbook. It's got a pretty good explanation of what's included in there, and they factor in a lot more of the things that are a little bit harder to value. When you take a look at it, you'll see what I mean. Analyze policies that would make, if you follow this link, I think it would tell you exactly what you need to know for the ISCW. If we're moving on to analyzing policies that would make China's growth sustainable, I would ultimately fall back on, and this is what I've pretty much picked up on looking at different web pages, different news articles, that the policies that are going to make China's growth more sustainable is when the government starts to turn inward and manage business tighter, in the sense that potentially they could put on like pollution permits, increasing taxation, trying to reduce pollution, environmental regulation, becoming tougher on that, tougher on pollution, putting in, production standards. Anything involving regulation, taxation, and government monitoring would help make China's growth more sustainable. Right? And examine what the government is doing and what they are currently planning on doing. And this is a very good link about what China's planning to do. This is relatively recent. I believe it was up in March, as to what China's plans are for the next 5 to 10 years. So if you click on this link from The Guardian, it should give you some good information on what you need to know. And then finally, evaluate whether China should lower their target growth rate. I think all evidence will point to that, in the sense that what we're looking at is examining it from the pollution side, the environmental side, what's happening in China, and coming back to lowering their target growth rate, taming things down a little bit, and refocusing on that domestic consumption, and not being so reliant on exports. So I think in that context, we would ultimately come to the conclusion that they should, but again, entirely up to you. Don't just write down what I'm telling you to. And if I go back and I look through everything else I've got up here, any questions, write them down below. Keep them clean. Any comments, please. And also, I'll put this document I'm going to save and then upload to Google Docs, and I'll also have a link for it up there, because I'm updating it constantly. So you'll see the stuff from Extract 2 has been updated. As I find articles and as I pick them from the web, I'll add them to the different links so you guys can follow along. I should have Extract 4 up later on today, if not within a couple of days. Again, if you find this helpful, let me know. I've seen a few hundred of you have checked out these videos. It's way more than I was expecting. I know that I think 2,500 students take this OCR exam, and it would be nice to see 2,500 having passed through this page. But we got a couple more weeks before the exam, or rather, say about 10 days to go. If you have any questions, again, leave them on the wall. Hopefully you guys can answer them yourself, and I'll monitor what's happening there. Thanks.